Imagine you hit post on a quick video, complaining about like a massive pothole in your neighborhood.
Right, just a standard local rant.
Exactly. Or maybe you just stream a local city council meeting right from your phone. And then, within seconds, your device buzzes.
And not because you went viral, right?
No, definitely not because you went viral. In the eyes of the law, you've just been classified as a news broadcasting network.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. And the platform hosting your video is suddenly terrified of being held legally responsible for your local rant.
It completely flips the script on how we interact online. I mean, the casual nature of the internet, that feeling that you're just talking into the void,
Yeah.
that collides instantly with corporate liability and state-level compliance.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a massive shift happening right now in the digital landscape.
A really massive shift.
We've got our hands on a stack of sources, primarily some recent draft amendments from India's Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, or MEITI. We're looking at their April 21, 2026 notices and the consolidated rules, along with some really sharp analysis published in the Indian Express.
And together, they basically paint a picture of an internet that is about to fundamentally change.
The mission for this deep dive is to unpack these proposed amendments. We need to figure out how government oversight over digital intermediaries is expanding.
Because it really is a massive expansion.
We are talking about new regulations that cast a net over massive social media platforms, cutting-edge AI generation, and ultimately ordinary users like you.
The stakes here are incredibly high because, well, we're looking at the foundational architecture of digital accountability.
Right.
We're moving away from an era where a tech platform is just a passive bulletin board where people pin up whatever they want.
The burden of legal compliance is trickling down. It alters the balance of power between those massive tech companies, the regulatory bodies, and, everyday people scrolling on their phones.
Absolutely. So to understand how you and the tools you use every day are going to be affected, we need to start with the companies hosting the content.
Okay, let's unpack this. The new framework introduces a staggeringly broad array of directives that platforms must follow.
And they specifically name massive players like X and Meta-operated services.
Yeah, they are facing mandatory compliance with clarifications, advisories, orders, directions, standard operating procedures, codes of practice, and guidelines.
That is a lot of capitalization.
It's a lot of rules.
Yeah.
And compliance with all of those is now categorized as statutory due diligence.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the mechanism enforcing all of those different directives is the threat to something called safe harbor.
Safe harbor, which is huge.
It is arguably the single most important legal concept for the modern internet. It's the shield that protects platforms from being sued or prosecuted for what their users post.
Because if a user uploads something illegal or highly defamatory, safe harbor is the legal principle that says the user is the one responsible.
Not the tech company whose servers happen to host the text.
It treats the platform like a phone company, right? A telecom provider doesn't go to jail if two people use their phone lines to plan a bank robbery.
That is the historic model. Platforms were viewed as neutral intermediaries. But these 2026 amendments take that essential safe harbor shield and attach heavy strings to it.
Heavy strings.
Very heavy. They dictate that compliance with all of those ministry directives, the advisories, the operating procedures, the codes of practice, that is all now considered statutory due diligence.
And if a platform fails to comply with any of them,
they risk losing that safe harbor protection entirely.
Wow. This sounds like renting an apartment where the landlord can suddenly change the house rules via a sticky note on your door.
That's a great way to put it.
A new operating procedure here, a sudden advisory there. And if you don't adjust your entire lifestyle immediately to comply with the sticky note, you're evicted. Is it really that severe?
It is, because suddenly you are liable for everything happening in the building. How does a company practically operate under that kind of dynamic pressure?
By transforming from a passive host into a terrified, active enforcer, I guess.
Exactly. If keeping your business alive depends on following a rapidly expanding and changing list of government guidelines, you cannot afford to take a hands-off approach.
You're going to build massive compliance teams.
And deploy hyper-aggressive moderation algorithms to ensure absolutely nothing slips through the cracks. The liability of a single mistake is simply too high.
Which naturally leads us to the type of content that platforms are going to be most paranoid about right now.
Oh, definitely.
If I'm a tech giant, terrified of losing my legal shield, I am going to fiercely regulate the most unpredictable, chaotic content flooding the internet. synthetic media and AI.
Right. The new regulatory framework creates a highly specific target on the back of artificially generated content.
Rule 33 AI targets synthetically generated information.
Right. Yes. The law carves out a definition for audio-visual or audiovisual information that is created or modified by an algorithm to appear completely authentic.
Essentially hyper-realistic deepfakes, media portraying an individual or an event in a way that is totally indistinguishable from a real human being or a real-world occurrence.
Exactly. But the massive shift isn't just that the government is defining AI, it's the technical burden placed on platforms to flag it.
Because previously, the rules mandated that labels for AI-generated content just needed to be prominently visible.
Right. You can imagine a small tag under a video player or a quick watermark that flashes on the screen for a second before the video starts.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The new proposed requirement throws that out.
It does.
Now, labels must be displayed continuously and clearly throughout the entire duration of the visual content.
Which is a massive change.
I am struggling to understand how that works in reality. Does every single AI-generated video have to look like a 1990s television broadcast with a permanent opaque network logo burned right into the corner?
It sounds like it, yeah.
And more importantly, how do platforms retrofit millions of daily uploads to enforce that?
It is a profound technological hurdle. Implementing a persistent disclosure on a continuous basis requires staggering computational power.
I can't even imagine the server costs.
Think about what a platform has to do when a user uploads a video. The system can't just scan the metadata or look at the first frame.
Right.
It has to continuously analyze the rendering to ensure a label is permanently affixed and cannot be easily cropped out or obscured by the user.
It sounds like a brutal arms race.
Mm-hmm.
On one side, you have AI generation tools being designed to look as seamless and undetectable as possible.
And on the other side, you have platform detection algorithms working desperately to force a permanent, unmissable label onto them.
But wait, the complexity deepens when you look at the exceptions the law tries to carve out.
Yes, the Indian Express analysis specifically flagged this. While this rule casts a massive net over digital creators, there are highly detailed safeguards to protect routine software use.
The rules explicitly state that content is not deemed synthetic if it's just the result of routine good faith editing, right?
Right. So if I use a basic filter on my phone to fix the lighting in a dark room.
Or I use an audio tool to drop the background static from a voice note.
Exactly. Your content isn't suddenly going to be branded with a permanent synthetic watermark across your face.
As long as my edits don't materially alter, distort, or misrepresent the actual substance or meaning of the original content.
Precisely. There are also exceptions for routine professional work. Using AI to create educational materials, training documents, or research outputs is protected.
Provided you aren't using those tools to forge false electronic records, obviously.
Right, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's also an exception for accessibility and discoverability.
So using an AI to auto-generate closed captions or seamlessly translate a video's audio into another language to reach a wider audience.
Those are protected as well. The legislation is really trying to walk a very thin line here.
Because the real target is the malicious deepfake, manipulated media designed to portray a fake event as reality and deceive the public.
The government wants platforms to build this massive labeling infrastructure to catch the bad actors, while theoretically leaving legal breathing room for everyday digital tools.
But practically speaking, how does a platform's moderation algorithm know the difference?
That is the million-dollar question.
If a detection system scans my video and notices the pixels on my face have been algorithmically smoothed, how does a computer automatically distinguish between a malicious deepfake mask and a built-in smartphone beauty filter?
It probably can't.
It seems like platforms, acting out of fear for their safe harbor, might just aggressively watermark everything that triggers an AI detection threshold, regardless of intent.
That chilling effect is a very real possibility when you rely on automated systems for nuance. An algorithm doesn't understand good faith. It just understands pixel distortion.
Right. Platforms will likely err on the side of over-labeling to avoid violating ministry guidelines.
But if platforms are going to struggle this much to algorithmically categorize the nature of the content, like whether a video is maliciously fake or just color-corrected.
How in the world are they going to handle the new rules that categorize the creator of the content?
This is where it gets really intense. Because the source material reveals a massive pivot in who is considered a news publisher.
This is where the digital architecture shifts directly into the feet of the everyday internet user.
Historically, regulatory compliance regarding news and current affairs targeted recognized digital publishers. We are talking about massive digital magazines, established news websites, and official broadcasting organizations.
Organizations with legal departments and editorial standards.
But these new amendments expand that regulatory umbrella outward. The compliance burdens that previously only applied to traditional publishers are now being extended to intermediaries and the user-generated news hosted on them.
Wait, if I pull out my phone, sit in my car, and record a 5-minute take on a breaking political scandal, or I film a protest happening downtown and post it, am I suddenly being regulated like a massive news network?
What's fascinating here is that the law is effectively blurring the line between a civilian witnessing an event and a traditional journalist reporting on it.
That is a huge policy shift.
By expanding these rules to user-generated current affairs, the regulatory accountability reaches vastly deeper into the digital ecosystem.
But technologically and practically, how does a social media platform even begin to enforce this? How does X or Meta distinguish between a user sharing an everyday opinion and user-generated news?
Do they have to scan the transcript of every single video uploaded to look for civic keywords?
They almost certainly will have to rely on advanced natural language processing and keyword flagging.
And this brings us back to the precarious position of the platforms. If they are hosting your video of the downtown protests, the platform now has to treat that individual upload with the same compliance rigor as a broadcast from a major news channel.
Because if they miscategorize your video and it violates one of the new ministry directives for current affairs, the platform risks losing its entire safe harbor shield.
Exactly the problem. The platform has no choice but to aggressively police the news value of everyday posts.
They're being forced to take on massive additional compliance responsibilities for what ordinary people post regarding current events.
They have to categorize, monitor, and potentially restrict ordinary users to ensure they don't accidentally host a piece of user-generated news that violates a statutory code of practice.
It makes you wonder if platforms might just decide that hosting political or civic content from regular users isn't worth the legal risk.
That's a very real fear.
If I say, the mayor is terrible, an algorithm might let that pass as an opinion. But if I say, the mayor is terrible because he just voted for a local tax hike, does the algorithm suddenly flag my account as a publisher of current affairs?
It seems inevitable that platforms will just throttle or shadow ban anything that smells like news to avoid the compliance nightmare entirely.
It fundamentally changes the user experience. You might notice your posts about civic issues getting less traction, or suddenly being hit with automated moderation warnings.
The friction of sharing information about the world around you is going to increase dramatically.
So we have platforms hoarding data to scan for AI and scanning transcripts to figure out if we're acting like journalists. What happens if I decide I don't want to be part of this system for a specific post?
Like you want to delete it.
Yeah, let's say I upload a controversial take on a news story, it gets flagged, I panic, and I just hit delete. I want to erase my digital footprint.
Well, that brings us to the collision of data retention and data deletion. And it is perhaps the most legally tangled portion of these new amendments.
How so?
The rules state incredibly clearly that intermediaries must comply with legal requirements for the preservation of information, the retention of records, and the maintenance of evidence.
The digital paper trail.
And the crucial addition is that a user's request to delete their data cannot be used to circumvent these statutory retention requirements.
Yeah.
This is a provision designed specifically to align with the needs of law enforcement and regulatory bodies.
So what does this all mean? I'm trying to square this with modern data privacy laws. India recently passed the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, the DPDPA, back in 2023.
Right, a major privacy framework.
A cornerstone of that is storage limitation. The idea that a tech company shouldn't hoard your personal data any longer than strictly necessary, and that users have a right to request erasure. But these new IT rules seem to enforce the exact opposite.
It creates a profound tension.
It sounds like we are moving from a right to be forgotten to a requirement to be remembered.
Yeah.
If I delete a video because I realized I made a mistake, the platform still has to keep a copy of it in a locked filing cabinet for the government.
That is the precarious balancing act platforms must perform. On one side, you have the DPDPA mandating them to limit data storage and protect an individual's privacy footprint.
Right.
On the other side, you have these new IT amendments explicitly commanding them to preserve records and maintain evidence even if the user begs them to delete it.
So if that post constitutes potential evidence of a regulatory violation, the platform cannot simply destroy the record because you click delete. They are legally obligated to retain it.
Exactly.
But who breaks the tie? When a platform has to decide whether to delete a user's data to respect their privacy or hoard it just in case the government needs it as evidence, who makes that call?
The tech companies can't just be expected to guess which law takes priority on a case-by-case basis.
Right. They need guidance.
That oversight is heavily addressed in the revisions to the grievance redressal mechanisms. The amendments significantly empower a body known as the Interdepartmental Committee, or the IDC.
I noticed the sources spend a lot of time on the IDC. It seems like they act as the ultimate referee in this ecosystem.
They do, and they've been given considerably more teeth to enforce the rules in this draft.
Okay.
The IDC is now authorized to periodically hear complaints concerning violations of the Digital Code of Ethics. They can step in when platforms fail to meet prescribed timelines for resolving grievances.
And, most importantly, they can examine matters directly referred to them by the ministry itself.
So the IDC acts as this powerful oversight body, ensuring that platforms aren't using user deletion as a convenient excuse for losing a digital paper trail.
The platform can't just throw its hands up and say, sorry, the user deleted the video before we could review it.
Exactly. The IDC ensures the platforms are strictly enforcing the retention rules and preserving the necessary evidence for state review.
It paints a picture of a vastly more structured, deeply monitored digital environment.
It really does. The era of the ephemeral internet, where you could post a thought, delete it an hour later, and it would vanish into the ether, is essentially being legislated out of existence when it comes to civic discourse.
Which brings us to why you, the listener, should care about a stack of draft amendments and legal notices from halfway across the world.
It's relevant everywhere.
Even if you are just a casual scroller or someone using a basic software tool to clean up background noise on a family video, the invisible architecture governing your digital life is being drastically rewritten.
We are watching the massive burden of legal compliance trickle all the way down from multi-billion-dollar tech corporations directly onto the individual user.
The rules of engagement have changed entirely.
And the implications of that shift are profound. If ordinary people are legally treated as news publishers and every digital misstep must be permanently retained as potential evidence, will this kill the spontaneity of the internet?
That's a real question.
We might be entering an era where everyday users have to self-censor and fact-check their random thoughts like a corporate PR department before ever hitting post. Something to think about the next time you decide to share an update about the world around you.
The fundamental rules governing our digital spaces are shifting beneath our feet. The platforms we rely on are becoming less like open public squares and more like highly surveilled, heavily regulated broadcast networks where every user is an unwitting publisher. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the shifting foundations of the internet. Keep questioning the systems you interact with every day, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the next one.